Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Business Edge, the official podcast of the Feliciano School of Business at Montclair State University. I'm your host, Erin Blake. In this episode, we'll be discussing data analytics. In just a few moments, you'll be hearing from Mike Capone, the CEO of Qlik. Capone will be sharing his firsthand experience in leveraging the power of data through analytics to transform businesses and entire industries. Let's get started.
Thank you. All right. Look, it's super great to be here tonight. You left. I didn't want the fancy introduction for sure, and I didn't want it because I didn't want to bore people. Not because I could tell the story better, but because it's always super embarrassing to stand there while somebody talks about you and your career, and so we're just not going to do that. And then the other thing is, it's true that I'm on the foundation board, and we do look after the money. But what else do we do, Colleen? We raise the money. That's the hard part. Calling up people and begging for money is the hard part of that job. Giving it to Goldman Sachs to manage it is actually easier than shaking down people for money. But we do it for a really good reason, which is every dollar we raise goes to a scholarship for students like you guys, which is really important because the whole reason I do it is I believe that education is the way to raise all of society, and making sure that everybody has a fair shot to get a good education no matter where you come from is really, really important. So that's my connection to the university, and I'm super proud to be part of it and super proud to be here tonight. So what I want to do, super informal. I don't like really formal talks, and I don't like PowerPoint. I've got PowerPoint. I find PowerPoint to be an incredible crutch when you talk to people. So I'll probably put up slides and then I'll ignore them for the most part. But they'll remind me of things, that just some key points that I want to get across. I want to do two things. One is I'm going to give you the arc of my career, just because it may be interesting for some of you, because I wasn't born a CEO. Isn't that amazing? I didn't graduate college and become CEO. And then the second thing is what we'll do then was we'll talk a little bit about the space, because analytics is a hot topic right now, and kind of give you my thoughts on how that works and how my company fits into all that. It's not gonna be a commercial for Qlik, the company that I work for, but I'll use it to illustrate some points about analytics, which is important. And then what I'll do at the end, we're gonna talk formally in this setting for about 45 minutes, and then people got to split and go to class. Some of you do, and then what we'll do is we'll kind of close ranks, and then we'll have a Q&A and a conversation. But before we split, what we'll do is I'll give you, for what it's worth, kind of my parting thoughts on what I think you all should be thinking about in terms of how you approach your career, next steps, networking, all of those things, and how I might be able to help with some of that if you so choose to let me help. So let's get into it a little bit. So let's start with me. So I have my undergraduate degree is in computer science. So I went to a liberal arts college in Pennsylvania, a small one, and I was studying liberal arts. I was studying English and political science and all things that really are not good to help you get a job at all. They were things that were not, unless I wanted to go to law school or do something, it was going to be interesting. And the person who saw that the most was my father, who said, "This is all great. You're getting an education. I'm really happy you're educated and you know how to read and stuff, but you can't live at home when you graduate, so you need to get a job. You need to make sure you can get a job." And he pushed me into becoming an engineer and getting a computer science degree, on the theory that get a job, get out of my house, support yourself, and then if you don't like what you're doing, you can change it, but you'll change it, you won't be living with me till you're 30, right? That was his kind of thing. Damn if he wasn't right. He was right. So I got out of college a long time ago. I'm a lot older than I look. And I got a job. I got a job as a programmer. I made $22,000 a year, which even back then wasn't a lot of money. And I ate 2 slices of pizza and a glass of water every night because that's all I could afford. I was living in an apartment, and I did that. And the good news is I worked really hard. I liked it. I volunteered for different stuff and took some risks in my career and tried to be noticed and eventually worked my way up over a period of years successfully in kind of IT types of jobs, programming types of jobs, and then eventually management jobs. And then corporate, and then eventually higher corporate level jobs. My father, the reason he was so insistent that I get into technology, not surprisingly, was because he was in technology. So he was one of the first people in the world to have this title of CIO, Chief Information Officer, retail company called JCPenney. As you know, it's like a department store type of company. Back then, they were a big deal. Now, not so much. But back then, it was Sears and JCPenney and Kmart. Now it's Walmart and other things. But at the time, it was the second largest retail store in the world. And so my aspiration very easily became to be him. It was to be him. It was like, wouldn't that be cool if I could achieve what my father achieved? My father grew up on welfare. So my father grew up on public assistance. He lied about his age to get into the Army because I was the only one who could support himself. And then he got out and he took aptitude tests and they figured out he might be good at programming, and that's how he got his break, and he worked his way up. So he had it a lot harder than me, and I was super, super proud of him. And today, even today, whenever I have a bad day, I just think about what my father had to overcome to get where he was, and I realize I'm not really having a bad day at all, because life is generally pretty good. But I wanted to be him, and lo and behold, at the age of late 30s, I got offered the job of CIO of ADP, the company we talked about earlier down the road here, which was a great job. It was a $12 billion company, and it was managing an organization of about 8,000 people. And my job was really to pay, ADP's a payroll company mostly, pay 40 million people every week. The most stressful job in the history of the world. So be careful what you aspire to, because once you get there, you feel good for about a day, and then you realize everybody hates you. They're like, why doesn't this work? Why doesn't that work? And I was telling the faculty group I was with before that there were days when the Federal Reserve, the government, the Treasury of the government would call me because there was some sort of banking problem or something going on, and they want their money because we used to send all the taxes to the U.S. government. So that was immense stress. I did that for 6 years. It was a great run. I was at ADP for 26 years, so very unusual these days to stay at one company that long, but really had a great run, loved it, still love it. Carlos Rodriguez, who's the CEO, who has spoken here a couple times, was my boss, still a good friend of mine, still see him from time to time. But I got a shot to go somewhere else, and that shot was to become Chief Operating Officer, so one level up of a company called Metadata. Metadata was a cloud-based life sciences company, so what they did was they took data on something called clinical trials, which is studies of experimental drugs and therapies, new drugs and therapies, and they help drug companies bring those drugs to market safely and cost effectively. And the opportunity to use my skills, my brain and my knowledge and technology to actually work on something that helped save lives seemed really appealing to me at the time. It was a promotion for sure. It was a chief operating officer role in a smaller company, but it's much more the draw of the industry. Not that payroll was important. Payroll is very important. You got to pay people, but the idea that you could actually take everything you've learned over the course of 26 years and apply it to this thing called saving lives seemed really great to me. And you know what? It really, really was great. It was really great. And I did that for 3 years. The company was about to be sold, and just did get sold, so I can talk about it now. So I got an opportunity after that to become CEO of Qlik, the company I'm with now. And the beauty of Qlik is now it's taking everything I've learned, taking data and analytics, which is what Qlik does, and applying it to everything. So life sciences for sure, so we still have a big healthcare vertical industry, but also every other possible problem in the world, in business, but even more importantly in society, can be solved with data and analytics if you think about it the right way. And that's what Qlik does, and that's why I'm so excited to be part of it, to be part of Qlik. And I've been at Qlik for 2 years now, and love it to death. So let's go get the remote control here. I'm going to skip the Qlik commercial, as I said. So what I want to do now is talk to you a little bit about data and analytics and why it's important for all of you to be well-grounded in this. And if there's one thought I can leave you with, I want to leave you with a lot of thoughts, but there's one thought I can leave you with, it's that you all need to think about becoming data literate. You all need to get comfortable working with data. There is no job, whether you are working on a factory floor, whether you're a financial analyst or a marketing person or a salesperson or a manager or a leader, that in the future isn't going to rely on data and analytics to get the job done. There is nothing that's going to happen. And being data literate, being comfortable working with data, arguing with, interpreting information is as important to this workforce today, the workforce of today and tomorrow, as reading and writing was back in the days of the Industrial Revolution when people were switching from manual labor to a knowledge economy. So that is really important. I'll come back to that, but that's something that I want everybody to keep in their head as I go through this thing. And data is the foundation of the new economy. If you look at, I don't have the slide in here, but if you look at 20 years ago, if you looked at the top sort of 10 companies in the world in terms of market cap, you know what industries they were in? It's all manufacturing. It was almost all manufacturing or gas and oil, right? So ExxonMobil, General Electric, they were all big manufacturing companies. None of those companies now are in the top 10 anymore. Zero. GE stock, I think, is down to $6 a share or something crazy like that. So they're cratering. What are the top 5 companies in the New York Stock Exchange? Yeah, Google, Apple, right, and Facebook. And what do they? Apple is a little bit of a manufacturing company, but they're a lot more. But what do they all have in common? Data. That's right. So it is a knowledge economy. Those businesses are leveraging data to be successful, and those are the businesses that are going to win. So the companies that use data effectively are the ones that are going to compete and win in tomorrow's marketplace. And if you're not comfortable in that kind of mindset of data, I need to be able to work with data to be successful, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle in tomorrow's world. And if you think about the continuum, it's great to have data. The old CEO of ADP says this all the time. You know, data is interesting, but it doesn't tell me anything, right? You need analytics to interpret it, but then you actually need to know what to do with it, the insight. So you need information to tell you how to transform your business, and that's what Qlik does: is take raw data and transform it into insights. I'm going to stick the Qlik slides here for the most part. The problem, so we had a really good conversation with the faculty earlier about the role of a data analyst, right? And my argument doesn't mean I'm right. What you find as you get to be an executive is that you're right, you're wrong as much as you're right. So I'm not right all the time. I think I'm right about this though. I don't think that the concept of a standalone data analyst is really going to be a thing in the long run. I don't think it's going to be a thing. I think that it's going to be, the phrase I used was, it's going to be an and rather than an or. Like, I'm not a financial analyst or a data analyst. I'm a financial analyst who is very proficient with data. It's an and. I'm both. Because what's going to happen is, the old model was that there's this group of scary-looking people that sat in IT, and they smoked cigarettes and they drank coffee all day long, and that's all they did. We used to be able to smoke in the office. Like, I know it seems crazy for you guys because you're really young, but when I started out as a programmer, people would chain smoke at their desk. It was disgusting. And they'd drink coffee, and they would barter. So if you wanted a report or you wanted data, you had to bring them donuts, you had to bring them something, and they would put it on their list and they would get it done. And they hoarded all the data, and that was how it all worked. Some of you are laughing because you're as old as me and you get these jokes. But that's how it worked. And IT ruled because there was only a few programmers that knew how to get at the data, right? That's going to change. So this thing of democratization of data, like the concept is let everybody have it. Everybody in the company should have access to all the information in the company, unless it's super confidential. You don't want mergers and acquisition data. You don't want financial data of a public company that hasn't been reported yet. But in general, like, why shouldn't everybody be able to see, like, the sales and marketing data? Why shouldn't everybody be able to see that stuff? Because people are smart, and they'll help draw conclusions. And what we want to do is we want to get that data out to the organization. We want to give it to people. We want to make the entire workforce, everybody, data literate, technology literate. The tools are less important than the concept. And then the last piece is we don't. It's not a thing for executives. It's actually having the executives have data that the employees don't have is actually not great. What is great is when an employee can have a piece of data at their fingertips when they need to make a decision or they need to change a process or they need to take an action, and the analytics, the piece of information they need is right there in front of them. It's right there in front of them. You guys all have it today in a way, because if you go on Amazon and you're about to buy something, first thing you see is like well, here's what everybody thought about this, right? Like it informs your decision making. It's analytics. It's here's data on what other people, how they reviewed this, how many bought it, popularity. And then the other big analytics is the people who bought this also buy this, right? People like you buy these things. This is Amazon using analytics to be better, making you a smarter consumer. The conversation, I was with a food service company. It sounds boring, but they're actually very, very sophisticated on their analytics. The example I gave earlier is that they're serving lunch in a corporate cafeteria somewhere, and they can see how much lettuce they've sold. They can see how many salads they've sold. And they're using analytics to drop the price throughout the lunch period, right? Because the reality is, if salad isn't selling and you have a lot left over, it's no good the next day. You don't just put it away and serve it the next day. So what they do is over the course of lunch, they just gradually drop the price. They want to use it up because it's better to sell lettuce at half price than to let it spoil overnight. And that's all happening real time. And that's the analytics from the edge. So the edge is right in the front lines with the customer deployed. So when we think about it as in Qlik, we think about a few things. We think about analytics is the norm. This thing called the cloud. Cloud is just a delivery mechanism. I think you all understand what it is, but more and more computing is becoming a utility. So like the phone company is becoming a utility, right? So it's there's not something you necessarily need to worry about, but it's just a concept of think about computing will be something that nobody's going to worry about. There'll come a time when you won't even have a physical machine computer. Everything will be just a dumb terminal or a phone that you're connecting to cloud applications on. Data is enormous. So when I was at Medidata, and this I don't want to get too geeky here because I'm actually not that smart when it comes to technology either, in terms of like the bits and bytes of things. But when I was at Medidata, we were doing this thing. So we would run clinical trials. So we'd give you a drug. So you would get, you had some sort of condition, and you would get this new experimental treatment. So it's like Johnson & Johnson has a brand new drug. It's going to treat, condition X, whatever that is. And as part of the trial, you would go to the doctor, you get things. But then what we started to do is we started to instrument you as a patient. So what we started to do was we started to put a cardiac patch on you so that we can monitor your heart rate 24 hours a day. We gave you a Bluetooth thermometer so you could take your temperature every few hours, and then we would capture that data. We would give you an activity tracker so we could see how you slept and how much you moved around during the day. And that data all became endpoints in a scientific experiment on how well this drug worked. And we'd stream all that data into our cloud, our data center, and we would analyze it, and we would interpret it. And we got pretty good at it. So we would know if a drug was actually causing people to lose sleep, if an experimental drug was causing people to spike a temperature, to have erratic heart rates, and to the point where we could actually start to predict when people are going to get really sick, and we notify them to come to the doctor. It's the coolest thing about analytics. That data was about 6 terabytes per patient per week. 6 terabytes. It's hard for me to give you an idea, but like every song, every movie, everything that's on your iPad, like so all the digitalization, if you have like the highest end, most expensive iPad or tablet, that would not even come close to the amount of data we're capturing on one person, right? So multiply that by thousands of patients in a clinical trial, you start to see. So you can't think about this thing called big data as something different. Like there's all these companies that talk about big data. It's just data. It's just data. That's all it is. We're collecting billions of points. When you think about sensors everywhere, there are sensors everywhere. If you go to a winery in Napa Valley and you look at all the vines in the vineyard, you know why every California wine tastes exactly the same now? Like if you produce, a winery produces 4,000 bottles of wine now, they all taste exactly the same because there's a little sensor in the soil next to every vine that's measuring soil acidity, water, water temperature, how arid it is, automatically triggering watering. It's all being streamed, and those sensors are everywhere in every part of life. The future airplane is going to have a sensor in every seat. And it's going to tell the flight attendants when your seatbelt's not on. It's going to tell them how many people are standing up when they should be sitting down. All these things are happening when we speak, and it's generating tons and tons of data. And then we need to be able to pull that data together. So the most interesting conclusions can be drawn when you bring different sources of data together. Stuff that you would never even think of. So things like, for example, I was working with a propane company. Propane sounds pretty boring. All they were trying to do is make their drivers smarter. This is a bunch of not even college educated, high school educated people driving trucks. What they're finding was they were taking an awfully long time to deliver the propane, just tanks of gas. It should be super simple. But you know what they were doing? They were taking the long way. They were driving, circuitous routes. They were showing up at people's houses when they weren't home. They were losing like people's addresses and things. So what we did was we just gave them tablets, and then we imported map data from publicly available stuff. We imported weather data, also publicly available stuff. We imported the customer historical delivery data of customers in terms of when they're home, when they tend to be home when they're not home. And then we went out and purchased some data, which is a little scary from a privacy standpoint. But you can actually purchase data on things like when people buy stuff, and things like that. It's all publicly available. It's privately available. You got to pay for it. And then we were able to plot out when people are most likely to be home. And that company saved $20 million just by giving their drivers these iPads and making them smarter. And it was all because we brought different data together that nobody thought to bring together before. And then the last piece is artificial intelligence. So there's a lot of hype on artificial intelligence. You guys probably hear all this stuff. The most interesting example of artificial intelligence right now, I think, anyway, because there's a lot of it, but the most practical one is self-driving cars. You all know about self-driving cars, right? You know about Tesla has a pretty awesome self-driving car. They tend to drive into things still, right? So this is the problem, is that the technology is not perfect, but it's coming along. And the theory is that, so you'll hear lots of scary talk about how artificial intelligence is going to replace human beings over time. The reality is that is going to be true in some cases. There's no denying that at some point trucks are going to drive themselves. So long-haul trucking is an industry that's going to get disrupted by artificial intelligence. By and large, most industries will not. Most industries will not. You heard it here first. I'm telling you that it's true. There's going to be changes in the economy, but it's not going to be wholesale. My point of view, shared by a lot of people, is that artificial intelligence is actually making analytics more human, not less. So our point of view is that we're using analytics to make you all better at your jobs. You wear an activity tracker, right? We use analytics to help you be healthier, eat better, exercise more. There's lots of use cases for it. So we're on a mission at Qlik. We're on a mission to say that we want AI to help people, not to take jobs away from people. And that's an important point that we try to make. But there is a lot of fear out there about this thing. There's a lot of people writing about it. Don't believe everything you read. So I was talking to some of the students earlier before I came in here and said, can you help me get a job when I get out of here? Probably. Oops, did I go backwards? There we go. So I think that these are all my customers. We have 48,000, so this is just a subset of them. But the bottom line is, again, the best companies in the world are using analytics to make their companies better. And these are just some examples of them. AmeriGas is the company I was talking about before that was delivering the propane. If you go to Condé Nast is the publishing company, and they're based in the Freedom Tower. They do things like GQ and Vogue and some of the magazines, and they use Qlik every day to measure what people are reading. And with online content now, if you post an article and nobody's reading it, or people don't like it, you just take it down, and we tell them what to do and how to do it. The exciting example over here in the life sciences area, so Sanofi and Novartis and Merck. Some of the things we're doing with them, I'll go back to my clinical trial story. I'm just going to keep an eye on time here. My clinical trial story, which is the way a clinical trial works is that somebody invents a new drug, a potentially life-saving drug. So you have a disease like let's call it lymphoma. Lymphoma is a blood disease. And so when you have to conduct a trial on that. Unfortunately, there's no simulation you can do that simulates the human body. In order to test a drug, to make sure it's safe and effective, you got to put it in a person. It's a horrible thing, but it's the reality of it. And the gold standard to do that is something called a double-blind, randomized clinical trial. And the way that works is you recruit a bunch of patients that have the condition, and then you randomize them. And half the people in that group get the experimental drug, the new experimental drug, and the other half of that group gets either a placebo, a pill that does nothing, or a treatment that does nothing, or a current standard of care, whatever that is. And you know what? They don't know. They don't know which they're getting. It's horrible. It's a horrible thing. Scientifically, it's the right thing, but it's a horrible thing because it's inhuman. It's inhuman to tell somebody who's got a disease that could kill them that we're going to give you this treatment. It's experimental. We're really excited about it, but by the way, you might not be getting it. You're going to come to the doctor. Worse, you're going to get an IV. You're going to get treatment, and you're not going to get it. So the interesting thing, the hypothesis that we had was that we kind of already know what happens to a person when you don't give them the drug. We kind of already know. We kind of already know what happens with standard of care, current standard of care. We don't know what happens with the new drug because it's a new compound. But the problem with that was it wasn't replicatable. So nobody could prove that all the variables in this scientific experiment were the same as past experiments. But with technology, with data and analytics, we were able to do it. So for the first time in the history of double-blind clinical trials, 70 years, we were able to work with one of these big life sciences companies. They're actually not up here, but it's Genentech, which is a division of Roche out in San Francisco, and we proved it. And what we said is we took AML, lymphoma, and we said, let's do a fake generated control group using a data control group versus a human control group. And with that, we were able to actually eliminate the placebo arm from the trial. And what that did was, we didn't have to recruit patients and give them false hope because they weren't getting the treatment. It is the most powerful example of how data and analytics can make the world a better place than as I've ever seen. It made me happy and proud to work in life sciences and with data and analytics. This one is super interesting. You've probably seen this. My company, Qlik, was founded in Sweden, by the way. If you've watched the news, you've seen all this excitement over the 12-year-old girl who took a boat over from Sweden to lower her carbon footprint so she could come talk to the UN about climate change. Climate change is real. I know there's people who debate it. I hope you're not them. I'm not supposed to make political statements up here, but climate change is a problem. It was 92 degrees yesterday in October. It's not a thing. It's a real thing. So what we're doing, what's happening is, the group is called C40 Cities. It's actually now a collection of about 100 cities. The cities got fed up with the countries not doing anything about it. So they just formed their own group. So these 100 cities around the world, New York City's part of it, Boston's part of it, Stockholm's part of it, they banded together and they're generating their own data and analytics, working together, and what they're doing is they're finding ways to make their own cities more carbon efficient, less footprint. Really, really exciting stuff. And just another example of how data and analytics can make the world a better place. I talked about Condé Nast already. This is a great one. Also all over the news, opioid crisis. It's a train wreck. It's a horrible, horrible thing. People are becoming addicted to opioids. It's savaging the country. It's a serious thing. So we worked with a company called Jefferson Health, which is not a company, it's a hospital system in Philadelphia. And the theory here is, can we figure out how we can stop people from getting addicted to opioids? Because by and large, a lot of people get addicted without meaning to get addicted. A lot of people actually, they come off of surgery, they're in pain, they start taking, an opioid-based medication, and then they can't stop. So we said, it sounds like an analytics problem to me. And so we basically connected with every single electronic medical records system that we could find. We pulled the patient data, anonymized it, so we didn't know who the patients were, but we just wanted to see if there was any patterns in the data that could help. And we figured it out. And what we figured out was that, when you come off of surgery, typically you're in pain for a day or two, like bad pain for like a day or two. But the problem was when the doctors were prescribing the Oxycontin, the drug, they were giving everybody 30 pills or a month's worth or 50 pills. It was like a month's worth when they only needed 2 days. So all we did was we said, you know what, from now on you can only prescribe 2 days worth, and if the patient needs more, they can come back, get another day. Dramatic, 50% decrease in over the prescription pain medicine, which obviously led to a huge decrease in people becoming addicted. Everything's an analytics problem, like when you boil it down to it. You can solve a lot. There's a million examples like this. I just picked out a couple because I thought they're interesting and germane to what we're doing. So this is our charitable foundation, Qlik.org. I'm big into charity. That's why I get involved with Montclair State Foundation. That's why I get involved with Leukemia Lymphoma Society. And Qlik has our own foundation. And what we do is we work on sustainability. We work on software grants for nonprofits, and we work on things for our employees. So our employees volunteer. They can all volunteer up to a week of their work time a month, not vacation time, but actually they can get special time off to go work on projects. So we have employees go to Africa and work on water, getting water to small villages. We send them all over the world, and it's a great way for our employees to feel connected. Just real quick on data literacy. I already talked about it. It's a big skills gap. I'm just going to implore all of you to just think about it a little bit. There's a bunch of online courseware that we have at Qlik that's free. If you just go to search Qlik.com and type in data literacy, you'll see. But everybody needs to understand the basics of statistics. Like, it's as simple as that. You have to understand it. I hated math. It's a bizarre thing because I was a computer science major. I hated math. Like, I was taking these courses. I literally. Do you guys have W's? Can you withdraw from a class if you're doing so horribly bad that you can get out? Do you guys have that here around or no? Yeah. Literally, I used all my W's on this one math class, so you get like 2, and I remember it was called discrete math. I was literally like failing it, like I was getting like 30s and 40s on all the tests, and I kept withdrawing. Finally, I just begged my advisor, like I was like, please, look, I'm.
You just had a bad math teacher. That's all.
I'm sorry. Oh.
You just had a bad math teacher.
Oh, yeah, it could be. That could be. Yeah, it's true. You weren't there, so I'm sure you would have made me understand. I'm sure. I could not understand it. But you know what? My daughter is 12, so my daughter's 12 years old, and she's learning algebra now. But she's, I saw the curriculum. It's like geometry, algebra, calculus. You know what? Like, I'm not saying those things are bad, and I'm outnumbered like 100 to 1 in terms of university professor types versus me. But it's all kind of BS. Like, you will never. I promise you, you will never use calculus in your day-to-day life. You're not just gonna whip out, like a sheet of paper and like start doing equations. It's just not how the world works. You will use statistics in a day-to-day life. You will need to understand when somebody presents you with information, is it statistically valid? Because I can take a set of data and I could challenge, anybody here, I could challenge the dean, and I could say, all right, you prove to everybody with a set of data that your company is growing, and I'll prove to you that the company is shrinking. And you can manipulate the data. You can change the scale on the graph. You can shrink the sample size. You can do a lot of different things to tell a story with information. So even after somebody presents you with a pretty nice graph, some of you guys are taking classes and using Tableau or Qlik in the class, you can visualize anything you want. I can visualize anything I want. I can also tell a story. And if you're dumb enough to believe me, then that's your fault, right? You got to be on the other side of it. You got to be able to sort of sanity test the information, and that ability to read, work with, analyze, and argue with data is like really, really important. The ability to go do that and learn it, and it doesn't matter what job you're in because every job uses data. So it's like my public service announcement here. Like, go do it. The problem is people don't do it. So if you look out there right now, a lot of people are making decisions that aren't data literate. And then the demographic of you guys is awful. Like, it's terrible because people don't see it. And the problem is there's also a huge bias as I think everybody knows, that there's a gender bias in the disciplines of math and science, right? So girls and women, they're underrepresented in this category, and it's because at a very early age there's a thing going on where they're discouraged. It's frowned upon for girls to like science and math, so they get discouraged, and it's terrible, and we got to fix it. And there's a lot of things going on to fix it. I would just say when you have opportunities to learn in this area, you don't have to be a statistician. You just got to be smart enough to know the difference, just what a statistically significant sample size is of data, right? we've done studies that show that companies can create 3 to 5% greater enterprise value. So if a company's worth, $1 billion, they could raise that by 3 to 5% if they can get the data literacy up in their organization. And we have big training programs going on with big companies right now to do that. So you can see, that's kind of just an example of the market cap. And this is what it just makes you better. You're smarter, faster. You get the answer quicker. And like as a CEO, like I say, you're better than your competitors. You crush your competitors. That's how I like to think about it. So as I mentioned, there's stuff out there if you guys want to do it. It's all free. I think it's being used in some of the coursework here, which is great. But if you get some time, check it out. It's not going to hurt for anybody to go into a job interview and say that I've taken all these data literacy courses. And this is kind of the future. Again, it's a little bit of a Qlik commercial, so I'm gonna step off this for now, and I'm going to check the time. So, yep. All right. So good. Perfect. I timed this perfectly. All right. So here's the last pitch. Like, what do you do next? I had some fun conversations with everybody out there when I was walking around the floor, saying, "So what are you gonna do when you go out?" And I got a bunch of I don't knows. I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I would fix that first. Like that'd be good. Something to go after first, which is set some goals. It's important to set some goals. I was talking to some people. The reality is you're gonna have, at your age, you're going to have multiple careers in your life, right? So your first career is really about getting out there and getting experience, getting that first job, learning how to interact in a work environment, networking, making some new friends. But you got to get out there, you got to get the experience. It's just how it is. It's an unfair world. People don't want to hire people without experience. But they will. You'll all find jobs and you'll all be great. The fact that you're getting your MBAs is a really good start. It really does help. When I got my undergrad during the day, and then I got a job as a programmer, and then I went to school at night. I went to Pace University and got my MBA at night. I was taking classes at night for 3 years because I wanted my MBA, but I couldn't afford to do it. Like many of you guys can't afford. I got to work. I got to support myself. So that's important. The most important thing you can do, honestly, is just you got to network. I gave a very similar talk at Pace University a little while ago, and I said the same thing to them. And I said, look, if you are smart, you all go out of here, and sometime between now and the next couple days, you all send me a LinkedIn request. I will accept every one of them because it's what I do. Because I think it's important. Somebody gave me a break when I got my first job. Somebody may give you a break. I can't promise anything other than I'll help. I'll try. There's probably a lot of other people like me in your lives that might be able to help you. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. It's a lot of us are introverts. I was an introvert. It's hard to believe, I know, but I was very introverted when I came out of college, and it was hard for me to network. You got to do it. You'd be amazed at what it pays off. And the best example I have, and Colleen knows this one really well. Jonathan Morgan graduated. We had a scholarship dinner this year. He was one of the kids who spoke, and that dude was all over me. He was, I talked to him, I liked him. He was great. He was energetic. He helped me get the crowd to be quiet. And but after we connected, and then he called me. He's like, let's have lunch. Let's. And he was, and we just talked and eventually I gave him a job. If nothing else, to shut him up, keep him from. But it worked, and now he's hustling. Now he's working. Now he's working for me, and I don't know if he's happy about it because now he knows what. I'm kind of a tough boss, but but you know what he did? He just worked it, and that's what you got to do. And I will help any way I can, and I'm not the only one. There's lots of people, lots of resources that can help you. So don't forget that. That's my other piece of advice to everybody is it is the key, and you just never know. You'll be so surprised that the person who helps you get your first job or your second job, maybe someone you haven't ever met before, or somebody just random meeting. Take advantage of it. It's easy.
That's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the topic. As always, please email your topics of interest to felicianobiz@montclair.edu or message us on social media. We'll be posting new discussions shortly, so be sure to subscribe on Apple and Google Play. The Business Edge is brought to you by the Feliciano School of Business at Montclair State University. Until next time, I'm Erin Blake, and thank you for listening.